everybody, and welcome to Blenheim Palace. As an American, I am so excited to be here because I have a huge interest in those American heiresses that came over during that period called the Gilded Age, roughly around 1870 and up to 1910. That's when over 100 American heiresses married into the British aristocracy, and of those 100, 60 married firstborn sons. One of those 60 was Consuelo Vanderbilt. She was born in New York in 1877 and married the 9th Duke of Marlborough in 1895. That's right, she was still a teenager. She had to say goodbye to her home country, to her family, and marry the 9th Duke, somebody she hardly knew. When she arrived here, can you imagine what she thought? It's vast. And this palace during that period didn't have all those modern amenities. But what Consuelo did with her wealth and her inheritance, she's one of the reasons that Blenheim survives today. And that's what I want to find out. I want to find out what it was actually like for Consuelo to live here, but also to find out what she did to preserve this palace for future generations. So let's head inside. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey, but it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
I mean, there really aren't any words to describe how magnificent Blenheim Palace is. I mean, just walking up those steps and entering through these extraordinary grand doors and then arriving right here. I cannot imagine what Consuelo must have been feeling when she first arrived as the new Duchess of Marlborough. And, you know, it's just this, wow, it's magnificent. Oh my gosh, this is my new home.
Blenheim Palace was built at the command of Queen Anne to honor the first Duke of Marlborough following his victory at the Battle of Blenheim in 1704. The magnificent scale and grandeur of Blenheim reflected the gratitude of Queen and country. It was the vision of the architect Sir John Vanbrugh and a shining example of the English Baroque style. Blenheim Palace has been home to the Dukes of Marlborough for over 300 years.
Visitors come to Blenheim Palace year in and year out, thousands of them because of the rich history and the architecture, but also many, and especially Americans, come to see the portraits of Consuelo Vanderbilt, the 9th Duchess of Marlborough. This was painted by Ambrose McAvoy, and he was really considered the society painter in the early 20th century. Painting Consuelo really helped to elevate his status, and having him as a painter of the aristocrats. And in particular, I will mention that my husband's great-grandmother, Alberta Sturgis, the 9th Countess of Sandwich, used McAvoy as well in around 1918 to paint not only 2 portraits of herself, but also of her children. So it's just wonderful for me to see this beautiful McAvoy painting with lovely, gorgeous, long neck, Consuelo Vanderbilt here. And I can't wait to explore, gosh, so many more portraits at Blenheim.
I'm currently researching and archiving the unique collection of letters and journals which Alberta, the 9th Countess of Sandwich, left us in the Montague family archives. Alberta's splendid portrait by Ambrose McAvoy hangs in the staircase hall at Mapperton. Alberta became friends with McAvoy and his wife Mary, and there are a number of letters which reference their friendship and progress of his work. McAvoy writes, "Dear Lady Sandwich, I have been meaning to write every day since I left Hinchingbrook to thank you for your kindness during my last visit." He continues, "I have been feeling so happy about this portrait. I really feel it is a great success from my point of view, and I can never thank you enough for all this help you have given me in painting it." In another letter, McAvoy mentions the portrait he is painting of the Duchess of Marlborough. He writes, "I have finished this picture of the Duchess of Marlborough that you saw, and also done another one, just ahead, that I am very anxious for you to see."
Hi everybody, I am thrilled to be able to share something that has been a game changer for me on my journey filming at these castles, manors, and stately homes of the UK. It's AG1. It has become my trusty sidekick, keeping me energized and healthy, especially when I film day in and day out. AG1 is a daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports the entire whole body health. So it's fortified with vital vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. It's packed with all the essential nutrients that my body craves. It's like giving my body a daily tune-up. And let me tell you that during those long days of filming, sometimes stretching to 12 hours, AG1 is the fuel that keeps me going. But it's not just about the energy boost for me. AG1 has inspired me to make healthier choices overall. Knowing that I'm starting my day with a solid foundation of nutrition, it's easier to stick to other good habits. And bonus points for taste, everybody. It is surprisingly delicious. I was skeptical at first, but now I genuinely enjoy mixing it with water or throwing it into my favorite smoothie for an extra kick. It is absolutely delicious. And here is the cherry on top, everybody. For a limited time, you can get a free 1-year supply of AG Vitamin D3+K2 and 5 AG1 Travel Packs with your first purchase of AG1. Just click the link below to take advantage of this offer. So if you're ready to take your wellness game to the next level, join me in making AG1 a part of your daily routine. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made for my health, and I plan to stick with it for life.
Stunning portraits of Consuelo are all around at Blenheim. I met up with social history researcher Antonia Keeney to hear more about Consuelo's time at the palace.
Thank you so much, Antonia, for meeting me. And it's just absolutely wonderful to be here at Blenheim and also to learn more about Consuelo's time here, because it wasn't that long that she was here, because the marriage, if I'm right, only lasted just over a decade.
Yeah, I mean, she was barely here at all if you look at the great scheme of things.
Right.
And in fact, there she is. And that painting was painted as their marriage was really beginning to crumble.
Really?
And, yeah, and I think it's such a sad story, because she almost came here against her will.
Yes.
She didn't agree to be married to start with, and then her mother, took herself off with a fit of the vapours and goodness knows what else. And it was her mother that wanted her to have the title.
And, that was very common for these ambitious mothers who, had this, they had a great life back in New York or back in the States, but yet they wanted something more for their daughters, to have these titles or to be a part of the British aristocracy. And it was during that sort of period, the same period that Consuelo came over, that was called sort of the Gilded Age and those dollar princesses. And you're right, she was so young.
She was.
And she absolutely didn't want this marriage.
No. And she describes her wedding morning and how, she spent the morning in tears, and they had to try and disguise that her eyes were red and puffy from crying. And, to come to somewhere that was a typical Victorian country estate with all the protocols and the formality must have been such a shock for her.
Well, because she's 18 when she's married.
Yes.
And then arrives here, though, 6 months after the wedding, approximately.
Yeah.
Is that right? And then the first time, I know that she had been at Blenheim beforehand, but this is the first time coming here as the Duchess.
Exactly. And it's very different when you're the one that has to, for example, in late 1896, the Prince of Wales, who later became Edward VII, was a house guest. And, she had to think about how everyone had to be seated according to their rank. And, there was all this protocol that had to be observed. She was a young girl.
Yes.
She should have been out partying and having a good time.
Exactly.
It must have been so difficult.
It must have been really difficult. Yeah. And then she did, of course, produce 2 boys.
She did.
So,
I think she coined the phrase "an heir and a spare."
Did she really?
I think she did.
Oh my goodness, how extraordinary. So this painting though, Antonia, who was this done by and approximately what year?
Okay, so it's by John Singer Sargent, again an American.
An American?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it was done in about 1905, and that's just when their marriage was really drifting apart, and they separated shortly afterwards.
So do you kind of look at this portrait and think it was somewhat staged, as if we have to get this done because this is what, we as sort of high society aristocrats, we need to get these portraits done by, a very, very well-known, famous painter. But then after that, it's the end of the marriage.
Well, and also the Duke wanted it to hang opposite this immense painting by Joshua Reynolds. And it was staged in every sense of the word, the Singer Sargent, because this was painted in his studio.
Oh,
and
was it?
It was, and Consuelo actually had to stand, or he stood her on a box, and then painted in a step, which doesn't actually exist in the Great Hall, and this is meant to represent the Great Hall.
Oh my goodness.
Because the Duke was not nearly as tall as Consuelo. She was very tall, slender, elegant.
Yes, and he's a lot shorter. How extraordinary. What was her life like here for those 11 years? What would you describe it as?
Well, I think she was obviously a doer. And so I know she was very well regarded in the larger community. We have a record of her providing a treat for local school children every year. And there were about 800 children out on the South Lawn with roundabouts and swings and coconuts and, races and all sorts of things. She used to, when the 7th Duke and Duchess were here, so he died in 1883, they used to collect any leftover food and again distribute it locally. And it was all sent out together in one great big pan, one great big container. And she thought, well, at least I could separate the first course from the dessert, etc.
Yes.
And, she was clearly very thoughtful and very considerate. And even when she left Blenheim, after her time, she got involved in all sorts of welfare activities for the wives of prisoners.
Right.
So she was an incredibly caring woman.
As this was, in one sense, a business contract, an arranged marriage, she came really into this family in order to help preserve and save Blenheim. And the Duke knew that, didn't he?
He had instructions that he had to bring money to Blenheim.
Right.
And the only way he could do that was by marrying.
Right.
You know, and my goodness, he did it.
Yeah. But she did come here with ambitions to make sure that this place was preserved. She did throw, if you like, her millions into it. Yeah. And do you think that that's because she knew that she had also produced the heir, that her son was going to have to take on this great estate? So there was
Quite
meaning
possibly
behind her intentions to make sure that her money was spent in the right ways here at Blenheim.
Yeah, but at that stage, she didn't know she was going to have a son.
Right.
Or didn't know she was able to have children. Of course. But yes, of course. You know, this is something that each generation holds and looks after. And in fact, she did visit Blenheim after the Duke had died, and she did used to come and visit her son.
Right.
So, yes, that's a very fair point. And she's buried here. She's just near Winston Churchill, in fact.
Oh, my goodness.
So at Bladon.
Right.
She died in New York, but she was brought back over here, so she's with her son.
So she's with her son.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. And just one last thing, Antonia, because I do look at this picture, and in one sense, it kind of haunts me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you walked into the Red Drawing Room, and as somebody who's just, you know, wanting to know a little bit about Consuelo, when you look at that portrait, for me, in one sense, it doesn't seem as an unhappy portrait. You would have never have known that the year later the marriage was over. It seems to me that it was almost like, right, we're going to look the part, dress the part, and get this portrait done.
But then contrast it with that, which is also we're going to look the part, but there's so much joy in that.
Yes.
There's no joy in that,
yes.
or very little joy in that, I think.
It's very much a staged. Well, Ivor, her youngest son, looks... he looks quite happy with his
Blenheim Spaniel and
his Blenheim Spaniels. Yes. Well, how wonderful just to be able to see this absolutely stunning portrait of the family, and you know, done by an American artist.
Absolutely
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Antonia. Fantastic.
Pleasure.
Sadly, few records remain in the archives of Consuelo's time at Blenheim.
Hello, welcome to the archives.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Alexa Frost has selected some treasures to show me that have survived.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm almost trembling because I'm in the archives at Blenheim and seeing some of what Consuelo left and a little bit about her life here.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
You know, and I've read a lot about Consuelo because, of course, she wrote her own book, The Glitter and the Gold, and I was really able to get, I think, a bigger picture about her time here as well. Mm-hmm. But looking now and seeing that date in front of me, 1896, am I right in saying, of course, we know that she married 1895,
yes,
but she didn't come to Blenheim, is that right, until 1896?
That's when she returned as the first time as the Duchess of Marlborough.
And she wrote so clearly how it was, you know, she arrived and it was almost as if she was this what we would classify as a modern day celebrity. She arrived at the train station, the red carpet was rolled out, the whole community of Woodstock was there.
Yeah, and there were children, were given the day off school. They were lined up with flowers for her. There were speeches at the town hall. All eyes were on her. And as you say, it was a big celebrity style wedding. And whilst it was written about extensively in the papers, both in America and in England, here you've got the local people all coming together and celebrating and welcoming her to Blenheim.
You've pulled out some things from the archives here. Where do you want to start?
So let's go for the homecoming.
Okay. Yeah. So March 31st is the homecoming.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. So this was put together by the photographer Henry Tort.
Okay. Wow.
And
oh my goodness. The homecoming of their graces, the Duke and Duchess of Marlborough.
Photographs by Henry W. Taunt there.
A thorough, hearty English welcome home. So they were married 1895. They went on sort of, as they did, sort of this extensive honeymoon, sort of traveling the world.
Yeah.
And then she arrives for the first time as the Duchess.
It's overwhelming.
Yes.
Let's have a look.
Okay.
So at the entry to the town, we had an archway with floral decorations. There were flags up in the town centre.
Lovely photos. And look at that. I spotted this. Do you see what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
That is amazing to see those American flags. So they were really welcoming her.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And as you can see, there were processions from the fire brigades. There were people lining the footpaths all the way up to
American
up to the
flag
palace.
again. Have to point that out. American flag. I love it. So they're heading up. Is that right?
Yeah.
The procession. Yes.
Yeah. And you've got the staff waiting outside, all in their finest livery, and Consuelo is ready at this stage with the Duke to just go in and nice quiet time, get settled in at home, but they have an elaborate dinner for the tenants in the palace.
Oh my goodness. Fantastic photos.
There you go.
And then what's...
And then here we have a close-up of Consuelo. This is sitting in the carriage where you can see that it will be drawn by men and not horses. This is outside the town hall when the mayor and his grace are giving their speeches.
Is beautiful. I mean, we say that over again, but she is just stunning.
Consuelo's hefty dowry, in many ways, saved Blenheim, which, like so many historic houses then and now, need constant upkeep and repair.
Looking at Consuelo in particular, the millions that she brought was able to secure Blenheim for future generations. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable thing to say. There was socially ambitious mothers from America. There was also His Grace's family desperate to secure Blenheim for the future, for the family, and to have what we have now, for people to be able to come and view the palace with the roof intact and a lake dredged. And
speaking about the lake dredged, because some of the projects that Consuelo decided to embark on, obviously using her money, one of them was dredging the lake. Is that right?
Well, the Ninth Duke is reported to have written back to his land agent at Blenheim the day after the engagement, telling him to dredge the lake. He was confident in their marriage to be that that work was going to start happening.
Oh my goodness! So
that was before their homecoming, before their marriage.
The Ninth Duke is on the phone saying, "Right, I've got the funds. Let's get to work." How wonderful! Consuelo was the reason I wanted to come here, just to see what she had, in one sense, put her mark on here at Blenheim in order to help preserve it for future generations. But again, she wasn't the only American who married the 9th Duke of Marlborough. There was Gladys, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
So their marriage ends, Consuelo and the Duke, their marriage ends. But is it right that Gladys was a friend of Consuelo's?
That's in part right. Gladys and Consuelo became friends following her introduction to the 9th Duke of Marlborough.
Okay.
In the early 1900s, they were close friends. We do actually have some letters that they wrote, that Consuelo wrote to Gladys, which...
So you do have...
I can,
okay.
I can share.
So how extraordinary that they were friends.
So we've got a letter dated here from October 1901 where Consuelo writes to Gladys, who is in Paris at the time. And Consuelo is at Blenheim and thanks her for sending the children such lovely toys.
Oh, yes.
How can I thank you sufficiently for your kindness thoughts in sending children such lovely toys?
And then it says he was playing with it the whole evening.
Yeah. And then over here, she talks about how delightful it was, and Blanford and Ivor send you kisses and many thanks.
Oh my goodness. So there is this overlap, if you like, of while Consuelo was still married to the Duke, and an affair in one sense happening between the Duke and Gladys, but that's towards the end of their 11-year, marriage as we know it.
Yeah.
And so my understanding, I think, is that it took a long time for that sort of divorce and then annulment to happen. But after it happened, is that right? Both of them immediately married.
Within 2 months, both of them had remarried. Wow. The 9th Duke to Gladys and Consuelo to Jacques Balsan.
Oh my goodness. Well, thanks so much, Alexa. This has been a real treat and honor. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Today, Blenheim Palace is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, welcoming some 800,000 visitors each year. But it is also the family home of the Dukes of Marlborough and the Spencer Churchill family.
Good morning.
Hello. I'm Julie, and I have a meeting with Lady Henrietta.
Okay, please follow me.
Great.
Welcome to Blenheim Palace.
Thank you.
In the private family apartments, I met with Lady Henrietta Spencer Churchill, who is Consuelo's great-granddaughter.
Lovely to see you.
So nice to see you.
Been a while.
I know, it's been a while. Anyway, thank you so much for having me here at Blenheim, and what an honor just to be here. And now in the private apartments, and now I get to pick your brain.
Perfect. Let's sit down and have a chat.
Okay, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's so wonderful to be here, and these
Have
are
you been in this room before?
No, it's beautiful, but also I feel slightly special because I'm in the private apartments.
Exactly,
Is that right?
Exactly. And actually, people are always very intimidated by the size of Blenheim, but when you come in here in the private apartments, you can see how lived in and cozy it is.
Yes, exactly. It is. It's very. I can feel as it's very homely, and it's been lots of family pictures around.
And this is actually called the Duchess's sitting room. Typically, every generation, this is where the Duchess hang out. It was her sitting room. So she would sit at the desk and write letters.
Right.
Whereas the men had their sort of more masculine study at the end of the corridor.
Right. But it's wonderful because it does feel, as you said, very cozy. And mentioning, of course, the Duchess's sitting room, I do, as the American, want to ask you, a few questions about Consuelo.
Funnily enough, I've just come back from Newport, Rhode Island, where all the cottages are,
Yes.
So I was at Marble House. So to relive, where my great ancestor lived in these amazing houses. And the first night we had dinner in Marble House, so it was quite nostalgic for me to be there.
Right, of course it would be. And let's start with Marble House then, because if I'm right in saying that Marble House was where the 9th Duke proposed to Consuelo.
Yeah, that was absolutely. So very much, as we know, persuaded by the strong Alva.
Yes.
Her mother from Alabama in the South.
It's extraordinary.
And of course, Consuelo was in love with another man.
Yes.
Rutherford at the time.
And engaged, is that right? A secret engagement?
Probably, certainly the mother didn't know about it.
Right, yes.
And then, she was virtually locked up, so she couldn't escape. So it was all rather tragic in a sense, but, the engagement took place. To be honest, my great-grandfather, Sonny, the 9th Duke, his mission was to save Blenheim. And thankfully he did.
Yes.
And Alva's mission was to marry off her daughter to a rich aristocrat, not necessarily British, because I think they went down the French route for a while.
Yes, as many of the American heiresses did.
Exactly. But anyway, I think at the end of the day, it wasn't a happy marriage, but it turned out fantastically well for everybody. So,
yeah. No, absolutely. And so Consuelo technically arrives to the palace in 1896, married in 1895, and in New York.
Yeah.
And she is, though, beautiful. You know, when we look at these American heiresses, you have very socially ambitious mothers for most of them. We know that Alva was like that, as you said, from Alabama, but then gets caught up in the New York society, very socially ambitious. But she has this stunning, beautiful daughter who, but I don't think Consuelo actually thought of herself as beautiful. Is that right?
Well, she was still very young, don't
Yes.
forget. You know, she was barely 18. But I think one advantage she had was she wasn't coming from, you know, some small little town in the south. You know, she'd been brought up in the likes of Marble House and the Breakers, so she was used to entertaining on a grand scale. So she knew what it involved.
Right.
You know, so she knew how tables should be laid and, you know, guest etiquette and stuff. Although I have to say, I think it was quite tricky initially because there's some quite strong women in our family. It seems to be the women who are the strong ones. And I think she was confronted by cousins and aunts and things of Sonnies,
Right.
who were basically thinking, who's this little American upstart coming and telling us, you know, what to do? But she soon got the measure of them. And I think at the end of the day, everybody loved her and respected her enormously.
Yes. Consuelo is your great-grandmother, and what you've been able to learn about her, and you did meet her, is that right?
Yes, I mean, I have a very blurred image of her. I remember she came to the house we used to live in before my father moved into Blenheim, which is Lee Place, 5 miles away. And I remember her coming there and sitting in actually a little sitting room there. And she came for tea. I don't know, maybe she was staying, I can't remember, but I do remember her in this she had the most wonderful posture, you know, elegant lady with her hair back in a bun and just sitting. And I, even at that age, I was thinking, gosh, you're such an elegant lady.
Yes. Do you feel that she did bring, I mean, I'm going to say this, but this sort of American spirit to her that maybe hadn't been seen before because she was coming into the unknown?
Yeah. I think she was confident in a certain way and very shy in another way. But I think she was well educated, which was an asset. So a lot of the English men in particular found her very stimulating company to sit next to because she had things to talk about. She had her own views, whether it was to do with politics or history or whatever, which perhaps a lot of English women at that stage and that age didn't. So she was always very well liked by, I think, the aristocracy, shall we say.
Right.
But I think life in the country was a little bit different. You know, she was used to having ensuite bathrooms and running hot water. And it was okay, we had running hot water. So it was a little bit of a shock to the system.
Right.
But she embraced it. You know,
Yes.
she took her lot and got on with it.
Of course, she brought in her millions. And in one sense, that did help to preserve Blenheim.
Most definitely. I mean, I always say if it wasn't for Consuelo, we probably still wouldn't be here. But having said that, we shouldn't take credit away from Sonny because he spent that money very wisely.
Right.
You know, he invested in making things better, not only on infrastructure you don't necessarily see, whether it was, you know, putting in heating, more bathrooms, etc., but also the wonderful gardens he created.
And is it wonderful for you being the great-granddaughter of, you know, Consuelo, so well known and so really well respected by the community here, but also I think she was very much well liked, wasn't she?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you have, of course, you've got, you know.
I've got a bit of American
what are
blood.
What are you? A quarter.
A quarter.
A quarter of American. But it must be.
But I've always loved America. I've always spent a huge amount of time there for my business anyway.
Yes.
So I feel very comfortable there.
Yes.
But it's particularly lovely going to somewhere like Newport and just soaking up that history.
Yes.
You know, and imagining what it might have been like when they were living there.
Being able to talk to you right now and again, listening to your memories, it's this, again, conversation I always think of is for future generations as well.
Well, I know. It makes the history come alive.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So, and in the same room that Consuelo definitely, presumably, spent quite a bit of time in
She
her
would have done,
11-year marriage here.
Definitely.
On display in the corner of the Duchess's sitting room is another glorious portrait of Consuelo by Ambrose McAvoy. And Henrietta showed me one of her favorite paintings of her great-grandmother.
So it's quite a wonderful focal point when you come down that long corridor.
Yes.
And it's sort of something that makes you want to walk down that corridor to see what's at the end of it.
Look at. So tell me just a little.
That's by Veruda.
Okay.
Obviously, that was painted here. You can see the tapestry in the background.
Yes.
It was one of the formal portraits painted, probably asked for by her mother, I would imagine. So she must be in her early 20s. So.
Yes.
But it's rather wonderful because I like the fluidity of it, but I also like the fact that there's some architectural detail, but in a loose way.
Yes, and I always, when we see portraits, I always look to see the props that are used. And it's so interesting that she has sort of a rose and a book of some sort, and then possibly
A handkerchief.
Handkerchief,
Or gloves, yeah.
yes.
Handkerchiefs or gloves, I'm not quite sure. So it's as though she's just been in the garden, picked a rose. And
also the hat, just because a lot of times, you know, when you look at portraits, not so many times do you see sort of such an extravagant hat, but I guess it's the time.
I guess it's because she'd been outside and come back in.
Yes.
And so still had the hat on.
So almost as if it's a wonderful.
Very elegant.
It's very elegant, absolutely elegant. Well, thank you so much. It's hard. I look at this portrait here and I think, ooh, I love this one, and then I compare it to I'm a big McAvoy fan.
Well, I agree.
And
that is lovely. I don't know. I like this one because it's just
Yeah.
quite romantic.
It is,
And she
absolutely.
probably wasn't feeling happy at all when it happened. So actually, this is one of my favourite rooms. It's lovely to see it with all the shutters open because typically we use this room much more at night than we do during the day.
Right.
So you come in after dinner. Drinks would be in the Dutch sitting room, then dinner in the dining room, and then after dinner,
You come
come
in
in
through
here.
here.
But this is all full of wonderful family portraits.
Yes.
The one over the fireplace is of Caroline, the 4th Duchess. And this is another funny story because I told you I was recently in Newport. So in one of the houses called Rough Point, on the staircase, there's a portrait by Reynolds of her.
Oh my goodness.
And how it's there, I don't know. I don't know. I have to delve a bit further.
Yeah,
See if we can get it back.
Yeah, I was about to say, is there any way you can get it back?
don't know.
And I've seen the other family portraits of her husband, lots of children,
yeah.
and very happy. That was a very happy
Yeah,
marriage, wasn't
yeah.
it?
And that was really the first time that Blenheim was lived in as a family home, was the 4th
Okay.
Duke and Duchess. And it was him who employed Capability Brown to put in the lake.
So
he did a lot.
What this wonderful place.
So anyway, it was sort of the room where you come in and got the bridge table set for playing cards after dinner. Somebody would play the piano. Not
Yes,
usually
yeah,
a member of our
yeah.
family. We're not very musical. So it's just
And then
and it's lovely the way it's set up because you can have your little groups, you know, group there,
Yes.
group there.
And coming in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the beautiful
and then
Italian garden.
You look south there to Bladen, which is where the family graveyard is.
Okay, right. And that is where Consuelo's
Buried.
buried.
So this is the bow window room. We now use as a dining room, but actually this is one of the first rooms that the first Duke and Duchess had completed.
Yes.
And she loved this room, I think, largely. Well, obviously you didn't have the Italian gardens then
Right.
when she was here, but she had it as a bedroom. So I'm assuming the bed would have been opposite the fireplace.
Wonderful.
But it's such a lovely
Yes.
spot. And actually, even as a dining room, if it was just small en famille, we have the small table here. But if it's a big party, we can seat up to about 22 on a long table.
Well, it's just wonderful to be in the private apartments. And that's what's so fascinating about these palaces, these castles. You have the great staterooms, and that's what the public usually wants to see. But then, of course, there are the private apartments,
Well,
which
there
are...
I know. But, you know, all our bedrooms are up on the second floor. So this is effectively the piano nobile, but all the main bedrooms are upstairs.
Brilliant.
Before I left the private apartments, there was one more treat in store.
This is our famous visitors book. Quite a small one, as you can see.
What's the span of years, roughly?
Well, it ends at about 2005.
Right.
Where does it start?
Oh, gosh.
In the 1860s.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's probably a bit of a diary, this. A bit of a scandalous diary.
That's right.
So this page we're open on now is one Edward and Wallace Simpson.
No.
But she was here with her husband, Ernest. And they were here for a big shooting weekend.
No.
And you've also got Winston, Clementine here that weekend. The Baclus.
Relatives. Those are Baclus are technically Montagues. They come from the Montague. But so this would have
Diana
been
Cooper, Duff Cooper. So yeah, it must have been a fun weekend.
Such a fun weekend. And this would have been what, 1936?
Yeah, 36.
Oh yeah, there we go,
Exactly.
36.
Exactly.
And why is it that because he's king, he gets his
Royalties get their own page.
Oh.
And they never write. It's not their surname. It's just
No, yes, of course,
like
it's
Elizabeth
R.
Exactly.
There we are. How and
Anyway,
she came here with her husband. How extraordinary. Because then 1936, then he abdicated in December 36. Then, of course, the coronation.
Maybe the deal was sealed. Yeah.
Yes. Well, do you know, if I had more time, Henrietta, I would actually go through this because I'm always interested to find out.
I mean, it's something I've dipped in and out of it, but I certainly haven't looked through the whole thing. Also, you don't want to handle these things.
No,
so
that's
much
what I'm
because
saying.
There's so much history.
Because there's so much history. But I'm pretty certain, now that I see the Baclus, but I'm pretty certain that if we go far back that way, there would be some sandwiches in there.
Well, if I have time, I'll have a look one day.
Look for the sandwich, exactly. Oh, wow, that is absolutely fascinating.
As I continue my visit to Blenheim Palace, I explore the spectacular staterooms, including the room where Sir Winston Churchill was born.
His mother went on a bumpy carriage ride, and that brought on early labour. The servants came down and cleared off the bed here of all of the coats, because this was the cloakroom.
Right.
And yes, he was born here.
And visit the beautiful palace gardens, which are the legacy of the 9th Duke of Marlborough and his second American wife, Gladys Deakin.
And here she is.
Indeed, indeed.
Forever immortalized.
In many ways, more so than Consuelo.
Yeah.
Although Consuelo's money is what saved Blenheim.
Yes.
Simple as that, whereas Gladys saved parts of the garden. So the two of them did quite some good work.
I hope you're enjoying these historic house episodes because I love coming to stately homes, castles, manors, and filming here. And because of the generous support of our American Viscountess patrons, we're able to make these high quality productions that you're watching right now. So do consider becoming an American Viscountess patron. And here you'll get all of these episodes early. They're also ad-free episodes. Plus, it's a wonderful community of like-minded people who love these historic houses as much as I do. There's also American Viscountess merchandise as well. So do check it out at patreon.com/American Viscountess. Hope to see you there. Bye.